Speech off. Stop recording. Stop recording. But speech off.
Hello guys, this is Music Master 2002 here. And today we're going to be discussing tech. And we're going to go back into the topic of iOS and software. So recently there has been a report that Apple has either discontinued or is planning on discontinuing the iPod Touch 6th generation. Now, okay, let me just explain a bit about the iPod Touch 6 and basically, I'll explain a bit about the iPod Touch 6 and then we'll go into some rumors about whether, some rumors about the iPod Touch 7 and whether it may come out or it may not come out. But we're going to talk about it. So, the iPod Touch 6 came out in June of 2015. The first version it ever ran was iOS 8.4. It had the new A8 processor, which is the same processor as the iPhone 6. And it had 1 GB of RAM, and it was an upgrade from the iPod Touch 5th generation, which has an A5 or an A5X processor with half a gigabyte of RAM. So, pretty much the same processor as the iPhone 4S, which in turn is pretty bad. Because it had a pretty bad performance. It was probably just as fast as the 4S. But, So the iPod Touch 6 was an upgrade, and it currently supports iOS 11 as of now. Recently there's been a report that said that Apple is actually planning on, I don't know this for certain, like, if they've either discontinued it already, or they're planning on discontinuing the iPod Touch 6th generation. Meaning that, they're actually going to, the iPod Touch either doesn't support any more updates, or it's going to no longer support updates. I believe it was after iOS 11.3, they might drop the update support. Now, some of you who are watching are actually iPod Touch 6 users, and I have a friend who has a sister who uses a 6th gen iPod Touch, and I mean, it's not that it's gonna suck. It just doesn't make any sense to me, because it has an A8 processor and 1 gig of RAM. Why do you have to discontinue it now? It doesn't even have the same processor as the iPhone 5S, which, by the way, the 5S has the A7 processor, which in terms of hope, they need to drop support on the iPad Air, which is actually the iPad that I have, which I'm using to record this video. So it's going to be an iPad. So they need to drop the software support for the iPad Air, the iPhone 5S, and the iPad Mini 2. The iPad Mini 1, they already dropped it in iOS 9. But it just doesn't make any sense to me. Why do you have to drop software support so early? It's not even 3 years old. Let's get into that part. It's not even 3 years old. Plus, with the processor and the amount of gigabyte of RAM, it's the same processor as the iPhone 6. But, of course, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to run as fast as the iPhone 6 if it were to run up to iOS 12. Which I hope is the version that the iPhone 6 will go up to, which is the phone that I have currently. I do have an iPhone 5, which has the A6 processor, but it doesn't make sense to me. The fact that they're going to drop software support now on a device with an A8 processor and 1 gig of RAM just doesn't make any sense. I can't wrap my head around it. And then plus that fact, a lot of people are saying Apple's going to move on to, Apple's done with, like, here's the thing. I've gotten people from diverse kind of areas where some people have been saying that Apple is going to discontinue iPods and focus more on the iPhone, the iPad, and the Mac. And maybe the HomePod. But then other people are saying they're going to release the iPod Touch 7. So here's another controversy. So this is another controversy here. Like, so when I talked to my best friend Nikita earlier, she said a friend told her that Apple's going to focus more on iPhone, iPad, and the Mac. But the other people have been saying they're going to release an iPod Touch 7. Okay. So, as of now, like as of February 2018, we have no evidence to suggest, or let's just say, we don't have enough evidence to suggest that Apple may be releasing an iPod Touch 7th gen. The only evidence that we have is a numeric code on iOS 11 GM that was on the Goldmaster of iOS 11, which specified that the iPod Touch 7 might be released, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to happen. And besides that, like that evidence is the only evidence. That is the only evidence that can prove that the iPod Touch 7 is really going to come out. So we currently, as of now, don't have any other form of evidence to suggest that the iPod Touch 7 is going to come out. However, it's too early. Like right now, it's only February. Okay, as of the time of this recording, it's only February. As of now, As of now, it's too early to even assume that there isn't going to be another iPod. Like, it's too early, because they might. So, we're not even 100% sure if they will, but then if they will release one. But then we're not even 100% sure that they won't release one either. So, we're right now in this path of 50-50. And there's going to be more rumors, more controversy, more everything. So right now, we're kind of in this in-between path because we don't 100% know on either side, but at the same time, there's not enough evidence to, like, okay, so maybe someone could say the iPod Touch 7 isn't going to come out, but do you have evidence to suggest, I mean, there is more evidence that it may not come out, which could lean towards the likelihood of, which we could be leaning towards the iPod Touch being discontinued, because Apple has already discontinued the iPod Nano and the iPod Shuffle, which could and that was last year. I'm talking 2017 here, which could probably lead to the possibility of them discontinuing the iPod Touch in 2018. However, I can't 100% say that they're going to discontinue the iPod Touch. I can't say that for sure, and none of you all can either. It could happen. We never know. So it's not about saying, no, this isn't going to happen, and I know it because of whatever. Those evidence, they need to be backed up by even further evidence. So you could back up your reason with evidence, but those evidence aren't 100% accurate. So what I'm trying to say here is that don't get your hopes up for the iPod Touch 7 just yet, because we don't know if it's going to come out or not, but at the same time, don't assume that it's not going to come out just yet. Wait until later on in the year, because you never know. You never know what's going to happen this year, and whatever happens is what happens. If they decide to discontinue it, well, that's their decision, and that's what's going to happen. But if they decided to keep going, well, that's what's happening. So don't assume and lean towards one answer, because we're never going to know until later on in the year. And I'm talking 6-7 months from now. It's February. We're still early in the year. We're only, this year is only 1/12 over. It's too early to even assume anything. We need to wait until at least August, we're not going to know until at least August or September. Maybe Apple might surprise us. And the hope is, I'm not hoping for this, but if they do decide to release the iPod Touch 7, and I'm saying if they do, okay? I don't know if they will or not, but if they do, then I would hope for Touch ID is gonna stay. Touch ID, definitely. But no, I don't think we should have Face ID on the iPod Touch 7. That's not happening. The home button's gonna stay, but the headphone jack will go away. Because the iPhone 7 didn't have a headphone jack. Why should the iPod Touch 7 have one? Besides, the headphone jack is pretty much obsolete now. I'm talking about for iPhones, they're pretty obsolete now. So, why, you probably could keep the headphone jack, but I would say take the headphone jack out. I would say the iPod Touch 7 can have the same processor as maybe the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus. And it would, or even the newer phone processor, but I would probably say it should have the same processor as the processor on the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus. And then it should have the IP67 water resistance, the same resistance on the iPhone 7 and newer. So that's it for this video. Please make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to this channel as well as Riley and Boppets. And if you have an opinion on this, why don't you put it down in the comment section? And tell me about it. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.
Speech off. Stop. Camera choose. Stop recording. Stop recording. Stop recording. But. Cap S. Cap S.
No.
Middle right side. Thumb.